Hi there, welcome back to our channel. If you've been following this real-time building journey, particularly this particular project, you've already seen the first two milestones of this project. That is the foundation to the DPC and DPC to decking. Today, we are taking you right back to site in August 2025 for the exciting decking stage. We'll break down the construction activities, the exact materials and the quantities used, and most importantly, the real cost of getting this stage done in Nigeria right now. If you've ever wondered what it truly takes in time, effort and budget to get from walls to that solid concrete floor above, you are in for a trick. Stick around to see the process step by step with real numbers you can use for your own building plans. Do you know that apart from the foundation, the decking is one of the most expensive parts or milestones of any duplex or high-rise building? And of course, this is because of many obvious facts. First of all, all of us know how expensive reinforcement bars are in the market, and I've considered how many that are going to go into a particular decking before it becomes solid enough. Then check out the wood that you're going to use for the decking, check out the supports, the bamboo, check out the electrical and the pipings that need to go into it for it to stand the test of time. So if we look at all this, you see that decking a 5-bedroom duplex in Nigeria this month can actually cost you more than buying the average Tokumbo car people buy in Nigeria. And today, we are going to show you exactly why. And in real time, which means we're going to use real-time cost of what these projects took. As has been established in our previous videos, this is a 5-bedroom duplex with a paint floor, as well as a BQ at the back. Now, this implies that following the structural drawing, of course, we noticed or observed that what was recommended was at least a 450 beam before the decking. And of course, that is what we are carrying out here, ensuring that all the beams are at least 450. And what we did was, since we have double deckings to do, we resorted to buy a marine board. And of course, there are advantages and disadvantages of whichever kind of material you choose to use. Because we could have gone for the normal board, but we decided to go for marine board. Now, if you want to go for the ordinary board, by the end of the day, it will be cheaper in the now. Right? But that will mean when you want to do the nest decking, most of the boards would have gone bad. You may buy as much as 80% of the nest board that we use. But marine board, if you get the good one, underline that particular phrase, if you get the good one, because of course, just like every other thing in Nigeria, there are so many fakes, right? But if you get the good one, you can reuse marine board. And if you're going to buy wood, you may just buy like 10% of the nest wood you would use for the nest decking. So for this project, we were being strategic here using marine board. And of course, there are other benefits of using marine board, which may include, of course, the smoothness of the decking when you are done. And, many other things will be in shape. Because we know that the normal board we use for decking in Nigeria, most of them could be deformed or have one square shape or the other if they are not well straightened. So if we are buying the normal board, you should pay attention to making sure that it selects the ones that will give you what you want when you get to the site. So having said that, this project, we made use of marine board for specific reasons. So, this decking that we are doing here measures approximately 144 square meters, and it houses 3 rooms and 1 family lounge. Now, let's see how we worked out our quantities here. So, an average marine board measures 1.2 meters by 2.4 meters. That's 8 feet by 4 feet. And now that gives us the total area of an average marine board to be 2.88. And if we divide this area, if we divide 144 square meters by 2.88, that will give you approximately 50 marine boards. But this did not end here, because we also have all the beams to carry. Now, carrying the beams is also another vital work to be done. If you check here, you see that there are so many things that were done before we were able to come up with the exact beam that is needed. Now, of course, marine board also implies that the support, which is the bamboo that is used for support, will be more, because you don't want it to deform your marine board, particularly if you plan to use it again. And of course, if it deforms it, that defeats the aim of a flat and relatively smooth decking that you wanted to get. So when using marine board, of course, the supports are closer to each other than when you are using normal wood. These are the things that also increase the price of using marine board, the cost of using marine board. And of course, you have 2 options: either to use DPM, that's the waterproof, to cover it, which will make it easier for the marine board to come out of the concrete, or you can decide to use condemned oil to rub on it, so it will not stick to the concrete. But in this case, we preferred to use the nylon, which is the DPM, to cover the entire space before the iron work starts. Now, once the woodwork had been completed, the next thing is to put in place the iron reinforcement bars. And of course, this is an activity that starts with, first of all, putting through all the beams. And then, after the beam is completed, before the top layer of the beam, then the mat starts. And this happens in such a way that after the mat goes through, then the top layer of the beam now comes in. This links together the mat and the beam, ensuring that the load of the decking is transferred through the beams to the columns. Of course, the beam links all the columns. You can see that there is a beam around the place you have all the walls. So it transfers that load from the decking to the beams, to the columns, and of course, which takes it down to our foundation to ensure that everything is distributed evenly around the construction members. So that is what is happening here. Now, for things to be done right, there is a bending schedule for every structural member, be it a beam, the columns, the lintel, or whatever. There is a bending schedule, and once you follow the bending schedule, for instance, for the rings and for the columns, for the beams, you will see that your project will turn out very good. So look at, if you're a construction engineer in the site, look at your bending schedule. For your columns, that will tell you how you bend your columns, the size of the rings and everything, and of course the spacing of the rings. For the beams, that will tell you how to bend it, and of course the spacing of the rings and all. And even for your decking, it will show you the place you have. If there is a double matting, it will show you how to bend the horseshoe and the rest of them. So that is very important to ensure safety in the construction site. So after the reinforcement has been completed, the next thing is the plumbing work and of course the electrical work. The plumbing work here is to establish all the points that you have toilets, so that we can put in the drains and of course put in the waste and supply pipes to that particular place. Because there are some designs that you have a toilet more or less inside a house, at the middle of a wall. It's at this point that you introduce all those pipes, ensuring that you do minimal breakage of your wall after the decking is done, because you don't want to affect the structural members. And at the same time, it's at this point that you put in all the sockets and all the lighting points that are supposed to be in the decking, piping them one after the other, locating and establishing those points. And here you pay attention to the location and placement of the sockets, because at this point, if the sockets are not placed at the plumb level, you will notice that even when you want to do the finishing, it affects it. So it is at this point that when the electrical personnel is working, you ensure that everything is at the same line, everything is at a plumb level. For instance, you have two sockets at a place, or you have two lighting points. You need to make sure they are the same level by the end of the day. So it starts now. It is important to state here that every activity in the construction site is like building on top of another. None of them is independent of the other. So if the piping is not done right, of course the lighting point will not be done right, or you have to do a lot of correction before you'll be able to get the lighting points or the switch points or socket locations right. So everything starts from the piping. So when you're doing a building project, just know that no step is independent of the other. So everything is, as you are doing this one, you're thinking of the next one and ensuring that the next one will not suffer because of what you're doing now. Now, this is more or less the final stage of the decking process. So here we are marking out the stairs. And of course, like we said, every project, every step is dependent on the other. So provisions have already been made for the matting to flow into the stairs, so that by the end of the day it will be all linked. Now what we did here is more or less these floating staircase, where you just have a beam. Of course there are different types, but this one you just have a beam under and then have the stairs floating one after the other, following till it gets to the top. So that is what we are constructing here. Just have a look. Now, the reinforcement is done such that each riser is individually linked to the beam, and of course is double matted to ensure that it carries its own weight. So that is the work that is being done here, and after it is taken one after the other until the decking, then that's when we know that the process of ironwork is completed. So when this has been completed and all the outside boardings are done, we are now ready for the casting of the decking. And on the D-Day, of course, we have our guys on ground with the concrete mixers and, of course, our poker machine. All these are to help to see that we get the very best of our concrete when completed. So normally our casting starts with getting all the beams first, or at least getting a reasonable number of the beams first. And of course we use the poker machine to vibrate it and remove all the air pores in the beam first before we cast the decking on top of it. So that is what is happening here. As we've gotten a reasonable number of the beams, then we are pokering it, and after which the casting of the decking itself on top of it comes. If our videos have helped you in any way, please subscribe to our channel, like our videos, and comment on our videos. And please share our videos to other people who may need it. Thank you. Now, let's go to the list of material we used to accomplish this 144 square meters decking. The marine board used were 73. The 1x12x12 were 63. Then there were other boards that we bought, like the 1x6x12 and all. Then the 2x3x12, the semi-hard, was 230. The 2x4x12 were 15. The bamboo we used was 277. Then of course the 4 inches, the 2 inches, and then 3 inches used altogether were 4 bags. The 16mm we used here, which were mainly for the beams, were 70. And the 12mm rods that were used here was 180. The 8mm rods used here were 57. And the binding wire we used were 2 rows, as the 2 bundles of 2 rows of binding wire. Then the cement we used here was 160 bags. And of course the granite we used were that thing actually is 20 tons, but in most cases they will supply it to people as 30 tons, but we used 2 of that. The sand we use the China truck, which is about 30 tons, so we used 2 of that. Then of course there were provisions for electrical and plumbing pipings. Now, in general, the total cost of these materials used to accomplish this decking is 10,797,800, whereas the total cost of the labor to accomplish this was 1,500,000 naira. This brings the total cost of completing this decking, both material and labor. And now remember, the labor includes the carpentry work, the iron work, the electrical work, the plumbing work, and of course the almighty the concrete work, that's the casting. And this brings the total of both material and labor to 12,297,800 naira. Thank you for being with us this far, and see you in our next one.